Like everyone else who's working with energy, I was called to it. It's something in life that you can't ever imagine not doing as part of your whole being and everyday experience. As a child, I was very fortunate to have a father who studied with the Native Americans and learned about the medicine way. He was an artist and also versed in the Buddhist background, so my upbringing was somewhat different. I grew up learning how to observe and talk to animals, understanding the silent and verbal communication while living on a working ranch. My father taught me how to look at the world through the eyes of an artist with a great deal of respect while exploring the energy and the life force that sustained us. At the age of 13, I went to a church camp with a friend, and soon after I left everything that I'd learned far behind me, thinking that my father's teachings were only to entertain a child's fancies. Through the coming years, I worked hard to suppress any mystical experiences until my middle 30s, but I continued to have experiences that kept leaking throughout my life. Then one day I had what I call the knitting experience, in which I was knitting in my living room, and I had an out-of-body experience where I could see and understand the connection of how everything was connected as one consciousness. It was then that I understood on a multidimensional level that what my father had taught me was not a fairy tale. It was a few years later that I woke up one morning and I had two beautiful golden beings standing next to my side of the bed waiting for me to wake up. They were as bright as the sun, but it didn't seem to hurt my eyes. I remember feeling confused and checking to see if I was still asleep. But I could hear my husband gently snoring sound asleep next to me on the bed. The birds were chirping and my pets were beginning to stir and wake up while rays of golden sunlight were streaming through the windows. I remember I closed my eyes and then opened them again, thinking that they might be a figment of my imagination. After a few tries, I gave up. Finally, I asked what they wanted, and the one closest to me said telepathically, "Anna, this is not what it's about." "About?" I said, not knowing what they meant, and again I heard the same phrase and a pause. "I don't understand," I replied, and instantly a picture frame was sat in front of me, where I could see moving images of my life being displayed. At the time, I was working on staff at a church, decorating for events, putting small groups together, organizing social events, singing in the band, working with volunteers. And once again I heard, "Anna, this is not what it's about." And then the image disappeared from my view. Then I saw another clip of my life. At the time I was a jewelry artist. I worked fabricating metals and stones, designing and creating jewelry that we marketed to sell. I was also taking jewelry classes at UTA so that I could use the lab in Arlington, Texas to make my designs. The instructor was a friend of mine. And again I heard, "Anna, this is not what it's about." And it also disappeared. Next were images of me doing my domestic duties as a housewife, cooking and cleaning. I never was a great cook or cleaner, and once again I heard, "Anna, this is not what it's about." And it disappeared. And then I heard a strong voice directly behind me, which was a wall behind the bed that I couldn't see, saying, "Anna, come let me show you what it is about." "No," I said, "I don't know you, as I've been taught by our faith to be fearful of out-of-body beings." Then I heard one of the golden beings say, "She's not ready." And then I heard from the voice behind me, "Get her ready." Then the golden beings said they would, and they slowly vanished from my sight, leaving me to wonder what had just happened. I turned over and shook my sleeping husband, telling him what had just happened, and that they were trying to take me away. I was really frightened at the time. Within a month, my whole world had changed and turned completely upside down, with everything in my life disappearing as I'd known it to be. Like Alice in Wonderland, falling down the rabbit hole, I learned that what I thought I believed was only an illusion. It was my pilgrimage back to Taos, New Mexico to heal and going to Golden Willow to grieve my spirit that I started to accept and allow the true gifts of the Spirit to come through once again, only this time filling up my soul. It was through the loving care of many teachers who came into my life that I was able to heal and walk again between the physical world and the world of spirit. I was fortunate in 2007 to attend a week with Hank Wesselman, a shaman practitioner, who renewed my life with my father, and I have gone on to practice with spirit. In 2010, I was taking a nap before I was about to speak at a group one evening. When I awoke, there was a golden being standing at the foot of my bed. I asked what they wanted. "Anna, do you want to know what it's about?" I knew then that what they were referring to was the purpose. "Yes," I said instantly, and immediately I saw a picture of the earth, only it was dark, and then slowly there was a light, then another light, and another, until it grew, like the candlelight service where the whole earth lit up with light. I knew what I was witnessing was the awakening of the earth and understood the purpose and what was happening on the planet. Another mystical experience that I often share with others that was important in this journey of light language is called The Voice, which I wrote and published in one of my books called A Journey into the Sacred Heart. I think that this story helps fit the pieces together and gives people an idea of what light language is all about. This particular experience happened just before everything came crashing down on my journey in my awakening period, and it taught me a lot about how energy works and how we're all connected. At the time, I was on staff at the church, and our pastor requested for staff to attend both services on Sunday. My family liked to go to the regular service in the early morning, then leave to go home to prepare lunch. After a few Sundays of doing both services, I got tired of sitting through 2 services and decided when they called for backup singers in the band, I signed up without hesitation. After all, they wanted anyone who wanted to make joyful noise, and that's what I did when I sang. It was a wonderful experience to be part of the backup singers for a worship leader and singer. She had an amazing voice and could bring people to their knees with the music. I just felt so honored to be behind someone who was so talented. One fine Sunday morning, when we were singing the Revelation song, which is so beautiful, and if you know it, then you know that it has a part where the lead singer holds the note for a long time and the backup singers jump on the note, kind of like jumping on a train and holding it in harmony. On this particular Sunday, I must have gotten the note right, because when we all came together, it shot pure joy through my heart and out through my body and energy fields that I astral projected out of my crown into another dimension. In fact, I found myself in a place of pure golden white light. And there, can you imagine, were 4 of my golden beings actually surprised to see me there. All I remember is with huge enthusiasm, I greeted them with such love. And in doing so, I heard very clearly, "Anna, you have to go back. They are still there, and you're still holding the note." With so much joy in my heart, I just said, "No." And then I heard once again, "You have to go back." And very reluctantly, I found myself pulling my energy back into my physical body that was still holding the note. As the band continued the song, I realized once I was fully inside my own physical form, I couldn't see very well out of my eyes, as it's a lot like having a bright light shining in your eyes and you see spots everywhere. It took me a minute for my eyes to adjust. When they finally did, and I looked out on the sanctuary, I saw what looked like a mirage on a hot pavement blow over the entire congregation, like a wave starting from the right and moving to the left. It happened very quickly, and then something odd happened. I saw people's auras burst into golden white light all over the sanctuary, and then I saw others who had pitch black auras. The people whose auras were golden white were engaged, smiling and full of joy, and the others were completely uncomfortable, and digging in their purses or looking down, fidgeting where they were sitting. When we finished the song, the band exited to sit on the band's designated pews for the sermon. But once we reached our seats, no one in the congregation, including the pastor, wanted to move. Whatever had happened and whatever swept over us had put us in a peaceful state, and no one wanted to break it. Finally, our pastor went to the podium and cleared his throat, trying to organize his sermon, and started to preach. I, of course, was asking silently what had just happened telepathically to my golden beings, but not a word was said to me. It wasn't until I'd said all my goodbyes and was driving home and asked the question again that I got an answer. I heard my name, Anna, and when I did, I knew they would explain what had just happened that morning. Anna, when one remembers who they are, then others too will remember who they are. It only takes one. I had been attending that particular church with my family for 20 years, and I knew almost all the families and people in the church. I had to ask, but what about the people with the black auras? And I heard very clearly, it is a choice. So I went on to question, thinking about all those I knew who had the black auras, and the beings answered in a loving tone, it's not about judgment, but to remember, it is all a choice for each individual to choose if they want to remember or stay in the darkness. And then I saw that there were going to be days when I too will choose that, and others will open up. It is our free will, and in that moment I realized with full recognition that I had seen the ascension process firsthand. So what I'm here to remind others is just how powerful each one of us are, and what we put out into the world affects not only ourselves, but also all those around us. If we live in fear, we become a symbol of fear, and others will pick up on it. If we live in love and harmony, then others will pick up on that as well. What we have to learn is not to change others, but to master ourselves. And when we do, we create something truly amazing in a collective consciousness. It is a choice. So what is light language? Well, light language is a language that every human being is already very familiar with. It is the language of the chakras, the auras, the energy fields around and in the body. The language of something that most people are not conscious of, and yet it is a fluent language of the soul, the spirit, and even the subconscious mind. The one drawback is that we as human beings become so invested in the physical world around us that we often miss this beautiful language altogether, even though our bodies and energy fields are speaking the language and picking up information from others on an everyday basis. What most people feel or experience when they tap into this language is what the intuitive world calls hits or knowing. In truth, it is a light from our energy fields encoded with the energy from our emotions and thoughts, which are always talking to other people's energy fields, expressing our deepest wishes and desires. The information that is shared can be about our health, and even our soul contracts and agreements that we have during this lifetime. When you break everything down, you find that everything is created out of light and energy. This is the very basics of understanding that light also carries information that is not only an expression of color, but rather an energy that can be seen, felt, or experienced in a number of different ways within our energy fields. For those that have the ability to see the human aura, they can learn to read the colors, but they can also learn to feel the energies that someone is expressing throughout their fields. Our health is also projected in these energy fields around us, and before we develop an illness, it always shows up in the subtle bodies, which is comprised of light and energy. If we don't clear the energy within our fields holding the illness, we eventually advance to the next stage of carrying the illness in our physical bodies. Acupuncturists and energy workers have known this throughout the ages. As we learn more about light language, we realize that it is a holographic universal language that we as human beings all use. When we become more aware of this multidimensional language of the soul, we learn to translate and process this living language by understanding our alignment with our energy centers and how they merge into the energy fields in and around the physical body. When we remember this, we become aware of our birthright as multidimensional beings connected to a universe as a whole. A while ago, I was invited to do a quick introduction about light language in front of a group of medical professionals. On the drive to the luncheon, I wasn't sure what I was going to say or how I would present light language to this particular group. And then I heard my name, Anna. In a second, a memory passed before my eyes. It was a long time ago when my husband and I were first married. I remember him coming home one day. He was excited because he had been working as an engineer and he had something he wanted to share with me. Taking both my hands, he led me into the room where we had our computer. Well, we sat in front of it. They're more like word processors. And he started typing something on the screen. I looked at it. I had no clue what it was. But all I knew through his excitement was that something special was happening, but I couldn't see it. Looking into my eyes, he said, "I want you to remember today, because today is very special. You're witnessing something that's going to change the world." I didn't realize it at the time, but what I was experiencing and seeing was the birth of the internet. After the memory passed, I heard my golden being say, "Anna, human beings are both mind, body, and soul." A few seconds later, I had a flash of doctors stealing bodies when they had to do the anatomy experiments and teach their students of what the body anatomy looked like. Another flash, and then I saw Sigmund Freud sitting and thinking and working and trying to figure out how the psychology of the mind actually worked. The vision left as quickly as it came, leaving me with an understanding that we as human beings are mind, body, and soul, and sometimes we cannot see what others can see. And what I knew in that moment was that something was coming, and it was the anatomy of the spirit, and what we already have, the body and the mind. But now the last part is the spirit anatomy that completes the human being as a whole. I have been asked to define what I know about light language and what it is from a perspective of being aligned with it as a human being in the third dimensional experience. So when we refer back to the holographic universal language that we call light language, we understand that the pathways of energy centers are always picking up information on an unconscious and conscious level. It is the very backbone of how we connect to ourselves, each other, the world around us, including the universal mind. What has been forgotten is the knowledge of how this language interacts, and now it's time to bring it to the forefront, to our awareness on a conscious mindset. We understand that for each of our physical senses, we have a match to the etheric side. And it is true that light language encompasses what we label as all the spiritual gifts. In the past, we have said that only special people were born with these special gifts of the spirit. But what if I were to tell you that each one of us have all the same gifts, and the ones that stand out the most for us are only because of how we use those particular ones more frequently? For whatever reason, we've turned them on and off, depending on our needs and fears. Now it is time to learn, to be fully aware and live, as well as have them at our fingertips, the knowledge of mastering our own connection. What we've forgotten is that we are designed to be multidimensional beings, to live and to participate on not only what we view as third dimensional experience, but to be conscious of how we connect to others, as well as dimensions that are interacting in and around our physical bodies, minds, and thoughts. As we are becoming more aware of making the adjustment to align with the new Aquarian age, many people are asking questions, wanting to understand how they plug in. To answer this question, it's important to consider that it all starts from the very basics of understanding yourself. With each person's expansion of awakening, we are suddenly finding ourselves face to face with a new understanding of this ancient knowledge, and with a greater understanding of how we fit into the great scheme of things during this lifetime. And suddenly, we are aware that we have the ability to change what we're experiencing, not only in our physical lives, but now on multi-levels. As we begin to learn how to transmit and receive messages through our own multi-layers of energy centers and etheric bodies, we begin to see a much higher perspective of communication and the way we look at the world while sifting through all the information that we're exposed to with this living language. It is up to each person to discern information that we were all misinformed about by recognizing how the information was not all that accurate. Take, for instance, the idea that only certain people were gifted, and even that certain people were empathic. It is when we recognize that we are all cut from the same fabric and that we all share the same gifts of the psychic senses, knowing that no one is left out. Again, we are reminded that it is only when we are taught or deny validation through our peers and others that we begin to doubt ourselves and how we plug into our natural gifts, forgetting once again that we are all equally blessed with the same abilities. For most, in some shape or form, they have been told that it was only their imagination or it wasn't real. So now when we start to become more aware of what we're receiving on an energetic level, knowing that when the hairs stand up on the back of your neck, when your arms start to tingle, when you see something and can't explain it, when you have a sudden knowing of how things work, when you're suddenly aware of energy in the room, when you connect with someone you've never met as if you've known them all your life, when you see other dimensions or experience another person's feelings as if they were your own, when you see patterns that others miss, or have a feeling that something is going to happen, etc., the list goes on. Know that it is all real. Once again, we are reminded that on a soul level, our souls are immortal and have always existed. And we begin to understand that while we're having an experience in the lower third dimensional planes, then what we're experiencing, if we only continue to focus on this one plane of existence, is the illusion of separation. We have come way too far to snap back into this deception. The time of shifting from operating in old linear energy to the new, non-linear, multidimensional energy is upon us. Most of us have forgotten that we are truly self-sufficient and able to resolve any issues we perceive to be holding us back from achieving our desires. We are given life challenges to awaken our subconscious. It is a calling to get our attention and to drive us to fulfill the reason we came into being. You have everything you need to joyously create everything you desire. Please join us in the Light Language Level 101 workshop, Anatomy of the Spirit and How We Connect. This class covers the basics of the language of light. It is a prerequisite to all other courses within this field. This workshop is designed as an overview of how you fit into the scheme of things by learning about different energy centers and how they communicate to each other on the physical and soul level. Students will discover a progression of the ages and how the multidimensional being fits into the third and fourth dimensions through our physical and spirit anatomy. We also have Level 102, You as a Multidimensional Being, Prerequisite Level 101. In this class, you will explore your spiritual gifts on a conscious level and understanding yourself as a multidimensional being. Through guided explorations, you will become more aware of the power of co-creating as you align your mind, body, and soul in experiencing different states of being and how you fit in and relate to the universe. If you would like to learn more, then please join me, Anna Noyce, in a guided tour in understanding and reminding us all how we plug into ourselves, each other, and the universe in the Light Language workshops and classes. For more information, you can go to my website, circleinsights.com.